within the 17.0 Totex e-commerce platform release, we've added the ability to embed Google's address search and address autocomplete features within the user registration, order checkout and submission, as well as user address updating areas on content managed websites hosted on the platform, using Google's Maps service with its Places API. This allows users to quickly find an address and automatically populate many of the address form fields without having to manually key the data in each form field individually. This in turn can speed up the user registration and order checkout workflows by providing streamlined experiences that can help increase the likelihood of sales going through e-commerce hosted websites. Additionally, it can provide cleaner address data and reduce the chances of erroneous address data being keyed incorrectly. That in turn can reduce problems during dispatch and delivery of ordered products, reducing business costs and saving time. To show you how this works on our demo content managed website we have here, hosted on the Totex e-commerce platform, if I click on the register button, and I navigate to a page that has the user registration area. Within the user registration, if I go down to the form section where we have to enter the details of an address that we're registering with our user, we can now embed an input where the user can type in the beginning of an address and it will automatically start displaying an autocomplete list of addresses that the user can choose from using Google's Maps service to then find the relevant addresses. So as I keep typing, Google will refine the address results, and if I then select an address, all the details of that address are then now populated in the subsequent address fields. So in this case, it's found the street, suburbs, state, postcode, and the country have all been selected. Without having to key each of these fields manually, and only having to type using the keyboard, I can quickly populate these fields, put in the final contact information, and then I can proceed through in order to complete the user registration. The same is true if we have guest order checkout turned on for our website. So if I navigate to a web page that is displaying a list of products or an individual products and add them to the basket, proceed to the basket page where we can view everything in our basket and then proceed through the checkout process. On a page that has the guest order checkout submission area, we can also embed an address search within the order detail form. So once again, type in the address and it will automatically populate all the address form fields without having to manually key them. Enter any other order details that I need to. Next, proceed to review the order and then we can submit it. Now for users that have logged into a content managed website, here if I go to a page that contains the user details, favorites and orders area, such as we have here on this page called My Details, down where we can add a new delivery or billing address, there is also the ability to embed an address search there, which can also automatically populate these address fields. And the same is true within the order checkout. So if we check out as a logged in user, within the order details form, if we wish to add a delivery address, we can also embed an address search, which will auto-populate both the delivery address fields, and we can also embed an address search if we allow this area to create billing addresses as well. Now within each of these four areas that allow address searches to be embedded, we can also decide to not allow the user to modify the address fields and solely only allow the address search form field to be entered. For example, within our user registration areas, we could decide to disable all the address fields and instead only allow the address search to automatically populate these fields. And that would be a way to rely on Google's Maps feature to ensure that these fields correctly populate and stopping users from potentially adding incorrect address data into the wrong fields. So it's an optional feature whether or not to have that disabling feature or to still allow these fields to be entered, just in case Google's Places API does not have a specific address, maybe because it's in a new housing estate. You may want the users to still be able to manually change the values in these fields, or if Google's Maps service simply doesn't have a specific address within its database, then you may still allow address fields to be modifiable. So in order to be able to set this up, the following needs to happen. We would have to do a few things. Firstly, the business which is managing this website would have to have a Google account, and if it doesn't, then you would have to sign up with a Google account. Once a Google account has been signed up, then you would need to log into the administration center of the project where this content managed website is hosted on the Totex e-commerce platform. Within the administration center, if we go to the stores menu and then click on the location settings, Within the location tab, we have this section called Google API key. So we need to obtain an API key that allows us to call the Google Maps service to be able to communicate with it. In order to get an API key, we have a link here where you can follow that in order to follow the instructions in Google's documentation on how to create an API key. So if you click on that link and go to Google Cloud, where you'd need to log in with your Google account and set up some credentials where you can then create an API key following the steps that they've documented here. Once you have the API key, you then need to paste it in the Google Maps JavaScript API key setting here. If you have previously set up the Totex project here in order to use the location finder that may have been embedded on your website, if that is the case, then you can use the same API key for both the location finder and the address searching. Now, once that has been configured, there is a new section here called Address Autocomplete Searching, and where we have a bunch of settings that need to be configured. So this first setting, restrict address searches to region. This is where we can specify up to 5 country codes where we want to limit the address searches to. So you can see by default it's set to AU. So that means anytime in address search the user starts typing, it's only looking for addresses within Australia. So if we leave the setting as empty and click the save button, we can see that now it will then find addresses across the world, from Canada to Germany to the USA and so on. So if we wanted to restrict it down to just a few countries, so let's say Australia, New Zealand and Japan, click the save button then, and after refreshing our page, you can see that Australian, New Zealand addresses and Japan, if we were matching their addresses, would come up in the address search. So it's important to know that you can only list up to 5 to restrict the searches down to, or you have to leave it empty based on the current restrictions that Google's map service currently puts in place. So these region codes can be found. Go to Wikipedia, there is a country code top level domain page, and you can see all the 2-character country codes that can be displayed here. If you are going to relimit the address searches to a select range of countries or to allow all countries, then you will also need to go into the stores menu, go to the countries and currency interface, and from here you will need to activate those countries. So if we were allowing New Zealand addresses to display, we also need to make that country active. So we can change this filter to all, and now we then have to turn on all the countries that we're going to allow address searching for, and that will ensure that this drop down here, which contains the countries, will then also have the name of the country that we have found in the address search. If it doesn't appear in this drop down, then it will not get automatically selected, which will be annoying for the users. So once we've set our regions that we want to allow the address searches for, all these other fields here allow us to control which parts of the address data should be put into the 4 address fields that Totex supports. So we can see here the first 4 settings are allowing to put the premise, the subpremise, the street number, and the route all into the address 1 field, which in this case has been labeled street. But these labels can be completely customized on how they should match. So the street could be instead called street number, the suburb field here, which is the address 2 field, could be called street name, and we could have the 3rd field be called suburb, and the 4th field could be called state. So we need to work out pieces of the address should go into which positions based on how many address fields we have got enabled for our Totex e-commerce project. For an example, we may want to put the street number and the route into the address field and append them with the locality and postal town. So now when we enter an address, we can see that now the street number and the street name and the suburb are all now being placed into the 1 address field because we've set those configurations to do it that way. So it's important to match these settings based on the addresses and how they're labeled, so the way it makes sense for both the user filling out the forms, as well as make sure that the data flows back into the connected business system where this data is getting placed within the orders and the invoice that correspondingly get raised. So once we've got all those settings saved, we've got our API key set up for our Google Maps API. We then need to place these address searches in within each of the areas. So if we click on the websites menu and go into the website interface, from here, if we want to set the address search in the user registration area, we first need to find the page that it is placed on. So we have a page called registration, but the name of the page could be anything. And we've already got a user's registration area embedded on that page. So if we go into the area settings, there's two new settings that we have available for the area. So the first one is called allow address autocomplete search. That setting needs to be set from no to yes if you want to allow the address search to appear in the registration area. And the other option that we have here is to disable the address mailing fields. So if we didn't want the user to be able to enter values into any of these address fields, then we would change that setting from no to yes. Then that would disable those form fields from allowing the user to set values within them. For this, within the area's formats, within the user registration form format, we need to find out which format that area is configured to use. Then back within the websites interface, if we scroll down to the web area format libraries and we go into the user registration area, we can find the user registration form, all the forms, and the one that we are using here in this example has already been created, called with address search. In the format editor, this is where we get to place where this search field will appear on the page. So we may want it to appear further down. We may want the contact address field to appear before the address search. We want to even change the labeling of this address field. This is where this can be all configured within this area's registration form format. So in order to allow this text box to display on the page, we need to embed an input element into the format. And there are two hooks that have been added to the format. This is address search input ID and address search input on focus. So that ID hook needs to go into the ID attribute of the form input element, and the on focus hook also needs to go onto the on focus attribute. Once those two pieces of information have been set, we can also set that label. So for example, if we want to change that label for search for address, we could change it to search for your address. Click the save button, then we can see the labeling has been updated and the search input has been enabled. In the user registration area, if we set the autocomplete address set to no, then if the user started typing address here, you could see that the autocomplete would not work and this form input is not functional. This setting must be set to yes, plus the input must be embedded with the area to allow the Google address search to display. With that done, it's the same process for the other three types of areas that we have. For the guest order checkout submission area, we would too go into the page that contains that area. We have a page here called checkout. Within there, we have this area called guest order checkout submission. The two settings that are the same as the user registration area, there's this setting called allow new address autocomplete search. That's set to yes. And then we can then decide to disable or enable the address fields for if we're creating a new delivery address as well as a new billing address. Like the user registration area, we need to set the allow new address autocomplete search to set to yes. Then we need to find the format that area is using for the guest order details form. Then within the web area format libraries, go to the order checkout area types, go to the guest order checkout. Then we look at the guest order details form. We can see the formats that are available. So this is the one that we're using, and the exact same HTML element that we have to add to the form, which is a form input, and it contains the two hooks, which is the delivery new search input ID and the delivery new search input on focus. So we embed them in each of the elements attributes. And because we can set both a delivery address and a billing address for guest user, we can embed that search for address in both of those forms. So one for the delivery address and one for the billing address. So to set that, we would then just implement that on the two separate forms. So there's the second instance, and the hooks just change slightly a little bit with the name. So we have billing new search input ID and billing new search input on focus. So that sets up the guest order checkout. It's the same for the order checkout and submission area. If we were to embed a search there, the only difference here that is called the order checkout submission area. It contains all the three same settings as the guest order checkout submission area. And we just need to update the format of that area, which is called the order details form. And that too has the same input that we need to add to the form, as well as the same names of the IDs and the on focus format hooks for both the delivery address and the new billing address that can be embedded into the area. And the final area we have is the user details, favorites, and orders area, where we can add a new delivery or billing address. So to embed the search on that area, back in the website's interface, we'll find the page where that area has been embedded in. So in this case, it's called the My Details page. It could be called anything. And then within that area, we have the two settings to allow the new address autocomplete search. So that would need to be set to yes. And we got the option if we wanted to disable the new address mailing fields, if we didn't want the user to be able to set the address fields there. So then we'd also need to go into that area's format, which can be found under the user account management area types, under user details, formats and orders. If we go to the user detail form, within that format that is controlling that area, and also embed the address new search input ID and input focus within the form input elements to enable the address search to work there. So now you know how to configure a content managed website for its user registration, order checkout, and the user detail favorite orders areas to be able to allow users to quickly find and automatically populate the address fields using Google Maps service and its Places API, making it easier and quicker for users to register, perform order checkout, as well as update the addresses that can help streamline the ordering processes and also reduce errors and keying mistakes, ensuring ordered products go to where they need to go, reducing business costs and saving time. If you wish to find more information, you can go to the Totex websites, look at the release notes within the forums, and if you have any questions, you can ask within the forums or contact us. You can also view the release playlist on our Totex YouTube channel. Till next time, have a good one.